Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Dominions 5, and this is a very special and different kind of video, because in this video, we're going back to Accidental Ascension 5L. I played in Accidental Ascension 5L, I was Bogarus. Unfortunately, well, you may have noticed that the videos just kind of abruptly stopped halfway through that game. Unfortunately, due to a variety of issues, time issues, illness, family matters that I had to take care of, I had to sub out of that game. I really should have done like a final thoughts video, I suppose, but I was just busy, and I never got back to it. So Accidental Ascension 5 just sort of faded out of history. I subbed out for somebody else, and the game went on without me. And Bogarus was already, by that point, not in a fantastic position, so I didn't feel too bad about it. The sub actually did fairly well and stayed alive, but the game has kind of ground to a halt at this point, and as I did for one of Lucid Tactics' games a little while ago, I've been asked to adjudicate the winner, to pick which of the the tired remaining main powers is in the best position at the moment. So I don't know why people keep asking me to do this. Actually, I mean, I'm flattered, but I'd be the first to say I'm not the best Dominions player out there. But I'm going to go through the save files of the 4 remaining powers, Utgard, Ulm, Atlantis, and Jomon, surprisingly, and give my thoughts on which ones I think are still are in the best position to win. So we're going to go in reverse order. We're going to start with Utgard, then Ulm, then Jomon, then Atlantis. So Utgard, he's given me his password, so that is... Got it? Alright, and most of these have are listed as a stale turn, because everybody's been staling. So, we can see here he's got a decent blood economy going, but not a huge one. What's that? That's 26, 39, 40. It's about 50 blood slaves per turn. So kind of a smallish blood economy. 162 blood slaves in the bank right at the moment. Utgard is, just zooming out to get a little bit of a wide area view, Utgard is pretty large. They span a large fraction of the world. They stretch across about half the world. Their province count is, I'm not sure what. Yeah, pretty large it looks like. In terms of armies, they got one major army here attacking Pythium, who it looks like is nearly dead. One province is owned by special monsters, yikes. So they got a pretty large army right here. A lot of Jotun hurlers for siege strength, I assume. A bunch of Jotun huskarls, some crossbows. A whole bunch of people set up into a communion. So they are turbo communioning with Jotun Scrati slaves. And they're spamming out Horde of Skeletons. This lady is scripted for Creeping Doom and Mass Protection. Has no nature gems. I assume that that's going to be handed off from Rind, or would have been if the game was continuing. He does have Pedosian, the Father Ill-Earth, geared up for... looks like kind of generic combat. Pretty high magic resistance, high prot, 25% regen, a little bit of shock resist from the Scutato Volturnus, which also gives an extra attack effectively, and the Flesh Eater, so he does Berserk. So yeah, this is like a turn timer SC, essentially. He's going to throw, like, Iron Skin on himself for natural protection, Temper Flesh, and then go into, yeah, Iron Skin, Temper Flesh, Legions of Steel, Resist Lightning, and Earth Power for fatigue, and then attack. So yeah, he'll be able to turn timer armies pretty effectively, unless they're geared specifically to counter him. And gearing to counter him is going to be hard because he's backed up by a massive Skelospam communion. And got this lady throwing out Battle Fortune and Doom on the enemy units, plus then a little bit of control just in case there are magic beings. So yeah, this is quite a powerful army. A big Horde of Skeletons, Turbo Communion. They've got Pedosian down here. And then up front, they've got a big old line of chaff. In the background, they've got a line of siege strength, and then some more chaff in blocks up at the front. So yeah, good army right there. He's besieging. He's just holding this siege down with a bunch of imps, it looks like. Although they probably would get pushed back next turn. A whole bunch of provinces down here that aren't really being defended. Blood hunting going on across Utgard. Up here, we've got his research mooks, his Seth Konar, up in Letia. Like I said, everybody's been staling, I think, a couple of times each at least. It is only turned 61, but this game has dragged for a variety of reasons. So I think people really are losing interest, which is why they've asked me to take a gander. So Utgard looks to be in a pretty good position. Let's look at magic gem income. 10, 10, 9. So 16, 36, and 15. Over 50 gems per turn, which is pretty decent. And they do have Illwinter up. So everybody is getting Illwintered constantly. However, it should be noticed that Jomon has Galegate, so they have a lot of air income, which is great for Jomon. Atlantis has Gift of Health, a fantastic defensive spell, plus Maelstrom, so a lot of extra water income. So, Utgard doesn't actually have any gem gens that are giving them extra income. They just have their regular old gem income, and they build up quite a few gems. It doesn't look like they really have any armies except for this one. That seems to be the majority of the nation's firepower. I also don't see their god. They do have the Queen of the Underworld here, who is a very powerful mage with Boots of the Messenger, Skullstaff, and Bloodstone. And they are calling god, so Utgard's god is dead. Christine, the Raven, is dead at this moment. Okay, so overall they're in a pretty solid position. Tactically, it looks like. In terms of thrones, they have the Throne of the Moon, which I think is the only throne they have claimed. Yes, okay, wow, right off the bat. Oh no, they also have the Throne of Might. But right off the bat, you can see Atlantis has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thrones claimed. Giving them 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 points out of the 14 necessary. So Atlantis definitely has a heads up on throne points. They've got that throne, which is kind of sort of in Utgardian territory, but guarded, clearly. Atlantis also has vampire lords, so Atlantis has a blood economy, which is a little scary. And Utgard has... Where's their other throne? Where's the Throne of Might? There's a throne there they could potentially make a lunge for through the Verdant Steppe, so that would be 3. There's a throne there they could potentially take away from Ulm. They've got that throne, and then where actually is... Ah, there it is. The Throne of Might is defended here by this giant castle. Also on the border with Ulm. Okay, so, yeah, they've got a monolith throne here, which is a Watcher's throne, so pretty hard to take out, but doable, especially with Pedosian. They've got another one right there. So there are 3 thrones within striking distance. Excuse me. Plus Atlantis, although starting a war with Atlantis over a throne might not be the best idea. But they do have, so they've got 4 thrones on the borders they could potentially strike 4. However, I don't think they have the forces for that. It looks like I said, it looks like they only have the 1 army, which is a solid army, but not exceptional for the late game. And beyond that, they've pretty much just got scattered forces. Not a lot of troops. They do have, I mean, these Sith Corner could easily form a very powerful skill spam communion with a little bit of backup. They've got a bunch of Jotun Skratirs scattered around. So 1, 2, 3, an Ice Devil there. 4. Yeah, a bunch of Skratir and Norna up here in Grey Barrier. So they've got the stuff scattered around to pull together into powerful armies, but they're pretty light on chaff. And in terms of claiming thrones, they're going to have difficulty because, if I recall correctly, Utgard does not have any recruitable Holy Threes. Yeah, they don't. The highest level priest they've got is the Jotun God, and that's not going to cut it. So all they've got is a prophet and their god for throne claiming, which means they're not going to be able to rush from this position. So they're in a decent place. We'll see what the others are like, but right now it doesn't look to me like Utgard is close to winning the game. They're kind of in a strong position to not lose, from what I can see, but it doesn't look like they're within thrusting distance of scoring the win. So let's skip out of that, and let's go to Ulm. Ulm's password is... maybe, was there a capitalization? There was a capitalization, okay. So, Ulm has a larger blood economy, although it doesn't look like it's entirely reliable. Carl didn't find any there, although Carl has a whole bunch. So yeah, they've got, what's that, 14, 16, 17, 22. This is about 70 blood slaves this turn, and they had a couple who didn't find any. I think in Carl's case, he's actually full. That's why he didn't find any, because of the stale. So, yeah. Ulm actually has a better blood economy than Utgard does. Now, they don't have as much territory as Utgard has. Excuse me. But they do have quite a number of vampire lords. So, Utgard has gotten up to where... Utgard clearly had gotten up to where they were summoning ice devils. But it looks like Ulm has gotten up to where they're summoning not only their national vampire counts, but also vampire lords. So yeah, in terms of research, 4, 5, 6s, 1, 7 in blood magic, and large armies of chaff. Looks like they're only now sieging down Erythia, which is gratifying to see that that my sub held out that long. I mean, that's like 15 or 16 turns after I left. And Bogarus is still in Bogarusian hands, which is also gratifying. Ulm, it looks like, has taken quite a bit of the former Bogarusian territory. They've also been summoning a lot of Clockwork Horrors, which is an interesting choice. Clockwork Horrors aren't terrible, but they're not my first choice. We've got a whole bunch of Black Priests here, and a whole bunch of Ulmish infantry chaff here, led by Illuminated Ones. Illuminated Ones are being used as communion slaves and masters, so he's forming straight astral communions. Plus he's got Wolf and Boots, the Blood Marshal here. I remember this guy. And he has some vampire backup. Okay, so this is a pretty tame army for the late game, to be honest. This right here. It doesn't need to be more than what it is. It's doing alright, but also some Malaya Druzhina up there. Cool. This is just a straight-up chaff stack. They've got a whole bunch of chaff and siege strength, and then they have a whole bunch of guys throwing Iron Blizzard. Very solid, very straightforward strategy for Ulm. We've got some stealthy rangers there. Patrol chaff down here, it looks like. Yeah, just wolf patrollers. In Ulm itself, he has a lot of wolves. Like a lot of wolves. 310 wolves in the garrison. He's recruiting Black Templars as well. And yeah, just many wolves. He definitely went all in on the wolf spam. This over here, he's got Al-Kazim. Huh. You better hope nobody forges that lamp again, because he's given Al-Kazim a whole bunch of pretty valuable equipment. But interesting. And he's got, yes, he's got all of his national vampire counts renamed to wolf themes, which is pretty neat. Except for Erzsébet. Erzsébet doesn't get a name, apparently. So this is actually where the majority of his vampire power is. It's here in Ivanmoor, facing off against Atlantis. I don't know if they're at war, but from what I'm seeing here, if they were at war, I think Atlantis would be able to storm in pretty effectively. They've got a lot of Forgiving Fathers down there, a big old stack of Ice Guard, Silver Order, and Green Lions guarding the Silver Throne. Whole bunch of Great Eagles for cracking forts. I mean, Ulm does definitely have some decent tricks here, but in terms of win conditions, here's Wolfdad himself, by the by, down by the Throne of War. In terms of win conditions, Ulm actually has no thrones claimed right now. They've got the Throne of War, which is fine. Beyond that, I think in order to take pretty much any other throne, they have to attack someone. Yeah, like, they'd have to attack the Silver Throne, or they'd have to try to get to Furia. Mostly, to take thrones, they would have to fight Atlantis. And it looks like Atlantis is kind of ready and waiting for that to happen. So, I don't think... I would say Ulm is further from winning right now than Utgard is. Utgard is putting up a pretty good show, and given a little bit of time, could potentially maneuver themselves into a situation where they could make a strike to win the game. Ulm, I don't know. Ulm is still spamming wolf herds, And I don't think, despite the fact that they have a slightly larger blood economy and decent blood magic, it looks like, for one thing, Ulm is having trouble using their gems. Now, of course, like I said, there have been stale turns. I understand that, so that may well be part of that. But I don't see a good late game. I don't see a lot of good late game answers in their armies. Like, if we look at this army, we've got Heavenly Strike, Communion Slaves, spamming Stellar Cascades, Maws of the Earth, Iron Blizzard. Iron Blizzard is a good spell. Iron Blizzard will definitely do work. Maws and Iron Blizzard is a good place to be. And then over here, Big Communion, Shadow Bolts. These guys aren't really scripted. Okay, so he's not really expecting a big fight. He has, I think, been casting Fivefold Gate, or whatever it's called. The one that spawns every demon type at once. Because he's got a few Demon Knights, a few Frost Fiends, a few Devils, and a few Storm Demons. All of which are good troops, and a few Fiends of Darkness. All good troops, all solid. But I don't think this army is going to hold up in a big, like, in a big straight-up fight. I'm looking around and I'm thinking Ulm has a lot of wolves. Ulm has a decent number of vampires. And they don't seem to have a whole lot else. In order to be really competitive with their heavily astral-focused mage recruitment, I would think they would need to have Thaumaturgy up to level, like, 7. And be pushing for Master and Slave or something. I don't know. But just in terms of thrones, resources, income, Ulm is further from winning than Utgard was. So, pull out of that. Let's look at Jomon. I'm very interested to see where Jomon is, because I did not expect them to be among the last contenders in this game. Well, okay, so it looks like they might be having some trouble. Well, although they have a decent amount of territory, to be honest. A whole bunch of flagellants down here from a random event, clearly. Barbarians, they did get underwater in a pretty significant way, and so they did manage to recruit a bunch of Ryujin. I always like to see that. Over here, they're going heavy on Onmyoji, which is good. They've summoned a Tatsu, which is not what I would do necessarily. I don't think Tatsu are actually all that good, but if you have the gems for it, you might as well. Excuse me. In terms of territory, they're smaller. They're smaller than either Ulm or Utgard by a fair grip. Got Xibalba up there. Under Siege and Peacehaven by Independence, so no actual combat happening right now. They do have the Throne of Beasts, but I believe that's the only throne they have. They also have a Tower of the Iron Order, which is nice. Their income is lower. And their upkeep is quite high, so their net income is cripplingly low right at the moment. I don't think I've ever seen this province before. I'm sorry, I've been distracted by the 390 foul spawn in this province, commanded by an Anunnaki of the sky. Fascinating. Anyway, a lot of people are still alive, like a shocking number of people actually. Man is still technically alive. Raga is still alive. They're obviously irrelevant. Xibalba is still alive, but looks like they're not in competition. At least they didn't tell me they were in competition. Even Phlegra is still alive. I thought Phlegra had died a long time ago, or at least been badly crippled. It doesn't. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. It doesn't look to me like Jomon is in contention for victory here. They do have Murashiga here, who is blind and weakened and diseased and going to die. Rip him. I don't think they're in contention for the win just because I don't think there's any possible way they can scrape together their armies and set out to take the thrones before someone else does. There is a throne right down here, Throne of Flames, that is unclaimed. They could potentially get to that one from underwater, like with a Shark Warrior strike or something. So they could grab that one. And they do have the Throne of Beasts. But even that's only going to give them 2 points out of 14, and they're never going to catch up. Yeah, looks to me like they're going to... Jomon is going to end the game with honor here. They're going to end the game in a solid position, having survived. And in terms of research, they've actually done a lot of research. They're up to level 9 Conjuration, level 8 in Thaumaturgy, and Alteration. That kind of makes, a difference. They can throw some pretty significant buffs down. The thing that might make a difference in a major battle is Time Stop. Because Jomon is one of the nations that, because they have all these Astral 2 mages, they can communion up and throw down Time Stop pretty quickly. And then drop, all kinds of other spells on themselves. Will of the Fates, also, great buff. Jomon loves it because it keeps their shieldless infantry alive as they charge forward. So, I don't know. If Jomon were to execute a really solid plan very quickly, they might potentially put themselves in contention, but right at this moment, in this freeze frame, as it were, at this moment, I don't think they're really in contention. They also have a bunch of Tengu down here who are starving and diseased, so I guess they've been sitting here staling for a couple of turns in Ial. Hurricane, barbarians. Unfortunate events. Death 3, yeah, there's a hidden plague site here or something. This army's just been sitting on. Rip them. That's unfortunate. Okay, so out of these 3 so far, Utgard is still in the best position. I need to go back, actually, and take a look at Utgard's research. Real quick. Because I didn't remember to look at that. Yeah, Utgard's research isn't as good as Jomon's, but they've got level 7 in 3 different areas. They've got level 7 blood. They've got decent levels in most things. They're low on Thaumaturgy, but I think that's fine overall, since they're leaning much more heavily on death. They stopped at enchantment level 5 for the skill spam, and Conjuration level 7. I think they may be running up to try and get Well of Misery, which would be a great grab for them if they could do it. They already have enough death gems to cast it, although they will need to overcast it pretty hard in order to knock something else out. Probably Stellar Focus. Stellar Focus is the spell that will be easiest to remove out of those, because nobody overcasts Stellar Focus by like 50 gems. There's no point. It doesn't give you that much. So yeah, definitely Utgard is not cripplingly behind on research. So now let's look at Atlantis. Atlantis has just hit enchantment level 9. They have a small blood economy, not a very large one. They've just gained an adaptive Pyrophlegeton, which is cool. And they found a gallows. Now here's the thing, okay? Just pulling out and looking at the map for a second. Atlantis is by far, by a long, long shot, the largest, the richest, and I would bet, yes, also the highest gem income of anybody in this game. By a long shot. I mean, really. Utgard's gem income was, I think, something like a third of this. Utgard's total gem income was about 50 per turn. Atlantis's water gem income is almost that. And part of that is because they have Maelstrom, which is giving them, 24 gems per turn. But not by any means all of it. Even if they didn't have Maelstrom, they would still be kicking the shit out of any other 2 players put together, just in terms of gem income. And gem income is a huge, huge deal. Having high gem income is a major predictor of who is winning. And they've got some really good stuff. Like, some really, really good stuff here. They do have a Circle Master. Okay, so that's where Atlantis' blood income comes from. Random events. They've got an adaptive Pyrophlegeton up there. Yeah, and they've empowered into blood. So they've got a little bit of blood. They've summoned a few demons and stuff. That's not the big thing they do, but look at their research as well. 2,700 RP per month. 2 schools already maxed out. A couple more schools about to be maxed out. They have all the research. They have all the income. Really, I think that's all I have to say. Whole bunch of Great Eagles over here for the siege strength, I think. I don't know who they're planning on attacking. If I'm judging based on where Atlantis' armies are, they've got a pretty significant force down here with Stygian Rains and Wailing Wind support. It's not a large army, but it would still probably win battles, just because of that combination of Stygian Rains and Wailing Winds. They've got a little a little army down here, another 100 or so troops with Stygian Rains support. Very simple tactic, very effective. They've got a big old pile of guys up here with some devils. Yeah, and then the other thing is, of course, they already have 5 thrones. So in terms of points, they only need 6 more points to win. They need 3 more thrones to win. Everybody else has a lot further to go. And Atlantis is on some thrones they haven't claimed yet. So like the halls here, the throne of ice has not been claimed, but they have it. What else? Let me see if there's another unclaimed one floating around. Overall, though, I guess the thing I'd say, oh, Gath is still alive. Damn, I thought Gath got killed way back when. Essentially, everybody, because of the stales, I think, everybody looks like they're not really on the war footing. But, oh my god, this is an army right here. Once again, not a ton of troops, but they've got all of the support they need to cause real havoc. They've got a golem casting Will of the Fates and anti-magic. I would probably want anti-magic to be cast by somebody else earlier, though. They've got Stygian Rains, they've got Wailing Winds, they've got a guy who has Soul Vortex active who's thugging. Yeah, you can thug Engacox pretty intensely if they've got the right gear. And this guy will fly to the back. Between, with the Stygian Rains, he's going to have an extra... Well, it won't stack. With the Iron Skin, though, his Nat Prot is going to be 20, so his total protection is going to be up near 30. And he'll have Soul Vortex, and he recuperates. And potentially he can be blessed, so yikes. I think, and I know some people in the game are going to groan aloud to hear me say this, but I really think, by any metric, I have to give this to... Oh, hey, didn't meet the foul spawn. By any metric, I have to give this to Atlantis. Atlantis is way, far and away superior to any of the other competitors, and they're not even on a war footing. Like this right here is magic power enough to crush any other army I've seen, probably, with a little bit of chaff. And they're not even being deployed to the front lines. They're just sitting back here researching, providing all that research muscle. And the fact of the matter is, Atlantis is not going to need to research for all that much longer. I mean, in 2 more turns, they'll have maxed out Conjuration. At that point, I'd just take all those research mages and go to war. Like, who the fuck cares about max level Thaumaturgy when you've got max level Alteration, max level Conjuration, max level Enchantment? Just go kill somebody and win the game. And, yeah. I think that's what Atlantis would do in this position. Just based on income and gems alone, Atlantis is in a massively superior position. Based on access to globals, territory, armies, research, they're better in every category. So it definitely is going to be Atlantis that I would, if I'm declaring a winner here, Atlantis is it. Now, of course, the players involved, thank you all, by the way, so much, both my viewers for watching and the players involved for asking me to do this and getting me back involved. Really flattering to me, to be honest, and I really appreciate it. So, Atlantis is being played by Perun, who also won another game earlier on my channel as Atlantis. So this is becoming a habit, and I encourage everyone to gang up next time to stop him, or at least not let him pick Atlantis. So congratulations, Perun. This is definitely your game to lose at this point. I think you would need everybody else to join a coalition against you to potentially stop you, and even then, it would be iffy. Mr. Root playing as Utgard is definitely a strong second. Tegak playing Ulm is third. And Jomon is, honestly, I think Jomon's done a really good job just staying in the game this long. As Jomon, you're generally in a really bad situation in late game fights like this. But they pulled it out, and Joman is still a player, is still a contender, albeit probably not going to win, but hey, it's honorable nonetheless. So, thank you all so much for watching. Hope this is enjoyable, and maybe, hopefully, it's useful to some degree. I mean, in this case, like I said, if you're judging the relative power of nations, often it comes down to pretty much this up here. Income, gems, gem income, etc. And if there's a big disparity there, you can just say, well, this guy's ahead because he has all this stuff that the other guys don't. But it's useful to talk and look around at what's available to be pulled out of the fire. Like, I think these 3 provinces right here contain as many mages almost as all of Utgard. Which is another big reason why, like, if these were empty provinces, if Atlantis wasn't researching because everybody was on the front lines, then I would be saying, well, okay, so they're doing all right, but they might be kind of stretched a little bit. But as it is, they're just definitely the winners here. So, thank you very much. Congratulations to Perun, Mr. Root, Tegak, and Kosar playing Joman, and I will see you all in the next game. Take care.